or go, as it says on my screen. Boom, go, same difference. Chris Grimes is me, a motivational comedian and mojo coach, broadcaster and facilitator. Here we are for a very exciting yet another halcyon day in the clearing of the Good Listening To show, Stories of Distinction and Genius. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Jonnny Cooper, the rock star of Gibraltar, as opposed to the Rock of Gibraltar. He said you could refer to me as something else a moment ago. So what was that you said, Jonny? It was very witty what you said. You could refer to me as...
I said, please call me a sun-kissed Adonis at this point in my life.
Yes, at this point in his life, he is living the digital nomad dream. He's broadcasting in live from the Rock of Gibraltar, hence the rock star of Gibraltar. He's a seasoned, well, his passion back in the day was a keyboardist and being a rock star. And you did cruise ships, you did global tours, you did all sorts. But we're here today to do a second pass through the clearing for you. And you're here to talk about all things CIB, consultants in business. So just position that. What I love about your ability is to constantly sort of phoenix rise, go again. You know, I met you before the pandemic, actually, a couple of years when you were doing Jonny Hates Marketing, a very successful Facebook group. You've had various variations on an acronym. You're doing CIB, as in consultants in business. I know your signature program was CAB, C-A-B. So you're going through the phonetic alphabet of the vowels to get your signature programs in there. So just tell us the story behind the story. First of all, welcome to the show. How's morale, Jonnny Cooper, broadcasting in from Gibraltar?
Well, morale is at 11 on the scale. I'm feeling very morale right now.
I'm happy to have you here. So just position consultants in business. It is a new pivot, which is, I know, several months into the genesis of for you, but just describe what's here on the table for the idea that you're bringing together well-being coaches and lucrative corporate clients. So over to you just to tell us.
Precisely, you've summed it up. So thanks very much. See you later.
Thanks for coming. That was, I told you I'd get you out here.
It's an evolution more than an absolute pivot. It's clearly an unbroken family line from, as you've said, the Jonny Hates Marketing group, which incidentally was renamed Everyone Hates Marketing to sound a bit more inclusive and just reflect.
And it's a universal truth. Everyone. It was always a clever name because the universal truth is everyone does hate marketing.
Yeah, that's what it felt like, and certainly in my tribe. But the CIB, the Consultants in Business project, is really just leveraging the community that I built over the last 7 years in the EHM group, who are primarily coaches and consultants and online therapists, all of whom, as you've adequately described, hate marketing, and just want to land some lucrative client engagements. The world has changed, and we all have to adapt, don't we, to the changing times, the changing environment. We are now blessed to be existing and living and breathing in the age of AI, which is a completely new paradigm for everybody since 2021. But the what's happened in our community, in our industry, which is sort of coaching and consulting and online therapy, it's just become more and more difficult to find individual one-to-one clients to do a few sessions with, to get people cheered up a bit, which is kind of what these practitioners do in general. And it is not worth the time. There's no return on time because practitioners in that space find themselves marketing 90% of their lives just to work with clients for maybe 10% of their lives. So we're looking at ways all the time to kind of flip that and make things easier and almost make client acquisition, if not automatic, a lot easier.
Yes. And the sweet spot you're hitting is the fact that, ironically, there was a second pandemic, which was called the resignation pandemic, when people realized the world had pivoted.
The Great Resignation, it was called, wasn't it?
And your pivot is that you've noticed that businesses fail 10 times more often through the lack of employee engagement and purpose than through lack of sales, marketing, or business strategy.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And all the people who are already succeeding in my former community in the EHM group as coaches, as healers and therapists, they're all more than capable of bringing those modalities, those skills, if you like, into companies and organizations that employ people. And that's where the big wins are on all sides. I don't just mean revenue, I mean impact,
Yes.
changing
Happiness.
people's lives en
Yeah.
masse, the
Yeah.
trickle down effect of, getting one client in the form of an organization or a company and changing
Yes.
hundreds, if not thousands of people's lives. I mean, for an example, we're talking right now as CIB to one of the world's largest maritime shipping organizations. I won't mention the name because we're at early stages, but when you look out of your window, if you live by the seaside, you can see one of their tankers on the horizon usually. They have 110,000 employees. And that industry we have researched and understood is one of the most critical industries in the world for lack of employee well-being, for depression, and sadly suicide. I don't want to put a damper on proceedings today, but people lob themselves over the side of the ship because they've been away from home for months on end and that kind of thing. So there's a wonderful opportunity there for us to make a genuine difference to hundreds, nay, thousands of people's lives just by creating a proper well-being culture. Our modalities include surveying companies and organizations to find out what's going on, what's going wrong, how do people feel about working there, what would they like to see different from working there, all that kind of thing. And
Yes.
we kind of transition into a sort of consultative phase with the leadership. And then we create well-being policies and strategies to implement. Of course, our role continues almost ad infinitum, where we'll be implementing those strategies and supporting the people within the organizations whose job it is, to implement them day by day. So it's an exponentially more fruitful and not to say lucrative form of deploying the skills and experience that we've got in our community compared with them just knocking on somebody's door and saying, hey, we need to have a chat. I see you're depressed, or you're suffering with this, or you just lost your job or something like that. The
And
world
so,
has changed, and getting into large companies and organizations is the key to success as a coach or consultant these days. There's no argument. The argument is done as far as
yes. And as a founder story of itself, what you're looking to do is be the conduit between the world's best consultants within the wellbeing space and then the clients that are crying out for it in a holistically
yeah.
important
I mean,
imperative.
and that's the business model
Yeah.
going forward. I hate that phrase. It's the business model, that we see ahead of us. Of course, in the short term, with some immediacy, is ensuring that all the coaches and consultants who join CIB are up to speed in terms of working with companies and organizations. So we have a very heavy slant on an emphasis on training and support so that they can get their own clients. We don't want to take anybody on who's just sitting around waiting for us to feed them
Yes.
a job, kind of out of work consultants, because by
Yes.
definition, if they're not working already themselves in that space, they're probably not that good at it. They're probably not
Yes.
skilled and experienced enough. So
And what I
everyone we take on is very intentional. We've got a community of 50 consultants. We're probably going to cap it at 100.
yeah.
We're not going to go much beyond that. It's not a mass market game, this. It's about handpicking the right people. And by right, we mean skills and experience and knowledge, but also, ambition and
Yes.
motivation and desire. We need to
Yeah.
see that they actually want to do these big pieces of work and that they've got the headspace and the time to actually do it. So,
Yes.
we're very intentional about who comes on board, and we keep a close eye on them in the early stages just to see what they're doing for themselves, what they're actually creating in terms of a thriving
And
brand.
my hope is to be a genuinely helpful conduit to that imperative in any case, because I work and, I fish in similar waters too. Just
Yeah,
2
I'm
weeks
aware
ago,
of that. Yeah.
I was doing
Bring it on, mate. Bring it on.
so I'll ask a sort of consultant's lens question about what is on the table when you do get involved in this extraordinary global reach imperative.
Yeah.
And the session I was running just a couple of weeks ago had the sort of more grown-up title of Navigating Through Change and Uncertainty, but the title they all really wanted is How to Cope in a Shitstorm, basically. So going back to your nautical analogy of the nautical fleet, you know, there are many, many more shitstorms hit by the maritime agency, shall we say.
Totally. Yeah.
So let's get you, if I may, sorry to interrupt you, on the open road of the structure of the Good Listening To show. This is your second pass. I'm intrigued that, as we know, several years on, we will answer it differently because our world has changed, as yours has too.
Let's hope.
So I'm very happy to have you back. So
All right.
at the very end, there's a very exciting bit called Show us your QR code, please, where I'm going to point both consultants and the big corporates, the big monoliths of the land towards your QR code as to where you can come and find Jonny Cooper and consultants in business from, as I say,
loving
it like that, which goes back to the music stuff. I'll ask you about music tracks you like as well, Jonny, not just your own, because my podcast editor, Dan, is brilliant at weaving in bits of music in the appropriate moments too. So for those of you that haven't seen this show before, where have you been? I'm about 250 monkeys into this process, and it's the show in which I invite movers, makers, shakers, mavericks, influencers, and also personal heroes into a clearing or serious happy place of my guests' choosing, as together we all experience their stories of distinction and genius. And as I'm reincorporating, this is a special founder story with Jonny Cooper. So Jonny Cooper, let's get you on the open road. Any questions before we start that?
Get on with it. I'm excited.
Let's do this. So
I'm throbbing.
It could have changed. So what is a clearing or serious happy place for you, Jonny Cooper? Where do you go to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think?
Probably fair to say my roof garden right here
in Gibraltar,
where I can get a clear view of the marina, of the airport runway. I mean, good Lord, to say Gibraltar's a unique place is to dramatically undersell it. It's 3 miles long, 3/4 of a mile wide, 800 feet high, full of monkeys. And there are very few places in the world where you can actually stand on a terrace, which is just a couple of meters away that way.
Yeah.
And you can see 3 countries and 2 continents.
And I love the fact you said it's full of monkeys. That wasn't a sort of self-deprecating diss of the people that you work with. It's full of monkeys. No, I get you.
Well, to be fair, they're Barbary apes. So they're not literally monkeys. I think it's a different genus, isn't it? But lovely little creatures. They'll tear your dog to pieces and eat it if they're so minded. So we're all a little bit wary of these creatures.
Don't mess with the monkeys is the obvious thing we all need to take away from that.
Exactly, yeah.
And how did the monkeys get there? Not that this is about how did the monkeys get to Gibraltar, but it's fascinating that they too are the sort of endemic species.
Hey, shall we leave it up to our listeners to Google that little piece of research? Because I don't know. I do know that they're indigenous to here, and this particular species of Barbary apes isn't found anywhere else in the world. So it's a bit kind of Madagascar-ish in that respect. But I really don't know. I just know there's lots of them. So my happy place is just looking out over the runway here. The airport is run by the RAF because Gibraltar's British overseas territory.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of lease little spaces to the airlines to hop in. There's only 4 or 5 flights a day, and it's just such a great privilege seeing jets coming in over the bay, over the Straits of Gibraltar. You can see the kind of headlights on the wings, and then you can track them as they come in and land, and you're a little bit above them. And particularly if you climb up the rock, there's some spectacular views where you can see the runway end to end. And it's just a remarkable place. I'm a little bit of a plane nerd, I love watching planes anyway. So I don't think I'd like to be in Hounslow, on the Heathrow flight. I'd probably get a bit tiring at that point. But
I'm broadcasting from Bristol, which similarly has a very thriving airport. But I know what you mean. Living by the Gibraltar airport is a whole different fruit basket of bananas, to go back to the monkeys. I had one other observation about the monkeys. There could be a King Julian, as you mentioned, Madagascar version of it that's starting to use AI, and then we're all worried when that starts to happen.
Yeah.
So that's your clearing then. In all my circa 250 episodes, no one said the Rock of Gibraltar on their roof garden. So I thank you for
There you
that,
go.
Jonny. So now I'm going to arrive with a tree. You might have some sort of, foliage on your roof garden in any case, but I'm going to arrive with a tree now, a bit deliberately waiting for Godot-esque, a bit deliberately existential because of my acting background. And this is now the exercise 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can go where you like, how you like, as deep as you like, if ever you like, into the following.
I hope I can keep track of this. My short-term memory is not brilliant.
And none of this is a memory test. I'm going to curate you through it. So this is where you've had 5 minutes to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention. That's where, squirrels is going to come in. And then the one or a quirky or unusual fact about you, Jonny Cooper, Managing Director of CIB, Consultants in Business, we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us. So 4 things that have shaped you, first of all, Jonny.
So I'm going to go in no particular order. One of the things is definitely I was blessed to be born into a family where music was everywhere. And my dad owned a small chain of music shops in Yorkshire. And he brought into our home, in every sense, music and appreciation of music. So massive record collection, pianos, organs from his store. We just were never short of something to sit down and play. And that got me going. And I would actually say, if somebody says, "What are you?" rather than "What you do," I would say, I'm a musician.
And I love the fact your dad enabled you to, using the metaphor of organ playing, pull out all the stops, just get on the open road of just going where you wanted to with
You
music.
love all this, don't you? Pull out all the stops. They're actually called drawbars on Hammond organs, but you're right. You can pull out all the drawbars.
Yeah, wonderful. So I know you're a pianist by passion. So what other instruments did you try? And how big was the tribe of the Cooper squad? How many siblings do you have?
So one brother who picked up the drums, again, from my dad's shop, and he lives in LA now, and he's just retired, bless him. And he's getting loads of drumming gigs. And I'm sure he feels the same as I do, that, were it not for my dad and his connection with music retail, that would be a huge blind spot in our lives, something that we'd massively missed. You can imagine, when you have it in you to play music such that wherever there's a keyboard, you can sit down and play. It has a huge impact on how you behave and the things that you experience. I was in Nashville Airport waiting for a connection flight a couple of years ago, and there's a piano in the concourse. I sat down and played it. Within 2-3 minutes, there was dozens of people standing around clapping and cheering and all that kind of thing. I thought, this is great. It's not from a egocentric point of view, but we made their days a little bit different, if not a little bit better. And just being able to do that, I think, is fantastic. And
Yes.
I'll always, salute my dear old dad and thank him for bringing that into our lives. So that's definitely one of them.
Did he play instruments himself, or was he just?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So this is an insight into my generation and my age group. But my dad was in the Second World War. He was in the RAF, and he had a dance band playing the Great American Songbook, as you imagine, during the 40s. And he played the trumpet. And he showed me years later that he kept some of they had these little business cards. Well, they had business cards in the war, but they did. And he had the name of his band on it. And he was called Jeff Hot Lips Cooper.
Which is very mash for the Second World War. Hot
Lips. Yeah, very, very mash. I said, "Zach, because you played the trumpet?" And he said, "Well, yes." He said, "But the WAFs used to call me Hot Lips as well. The women in the Air Force." So there you go.
That reminds me of a character, as I just mentioned in MASH. Hot Lips is one of the main.
That's right, she is, yeah.
She died very recently, I think, in terms of the world moving on. So that's wonderful. Your parents no longer with us, one would assume. I'm just asking that question.
Yeah, they were born in 1921, so they'd be.
Yes. Do the maths, 104 today.
Unattainable age,
yes.
Almost, for most people.
Yes. So wonderful first shapeage. Music is your first love, which reminds me of John Miles there. But anyway, now second shapeage.
I think it has to be connected with music. And this was the realization in my late 20s that, oh my God, I'm going to be broke if I keep on doing this. I hustled and ground for gigs for 12 years. I had a really good shot at it. And there was a pivotal moment. I've talked about this many times. I've written about it because it's so clear in my mind, clear as day. Rainy Tuesday morning, Streatham High Road in the 1990s. And I was in an old Austin Maxi, which when I bought it was on its last legs, let alone after I'd put another 10,000 miles on it, right? Conked out in Streatham High Road, full of my gear. The nature of these Austin Maxis was that they would tilt down if you put a load in the back because they were like this crazy, crappy hydraulic suspension or something. Hydroelastic, they called it. That's right. There's a word that you never hear these days. Hydroelastic suspension. This thing was on its haunches anyway, and it conked out. It just kind of blew up and stopped working. I went, oh shit! There was cars behind this Streatham High Road, massive A23, isn't it, into London? So I called my mate. I said, "Come and get my gear." And he brought his transit after about an hour. It's from a phone box, by the way. This is the era we're talking here.
I'm there.
So he rocks up with his transit. We get my Fender Rhodes piano, my 2 pieces of Hammond B3 organ, which speaker system, a whole load of other crap that was in the back of this car. Right? Cleaned it out completely, pulled off the number plates, and left it on the curb, half on the curb, ugly parking on the curb.
What colour was it, Jonny?
It was a dirty avocado greeny thing like they used to have in those days, right? And just left it. And apparently in those days, I mean, this seems to be, in retrospect, what happened. When you took the number plates off a car, the police had no way of tracing it because it didn't have a record of chassis numbers and that kind of thing. So I just left it there. I came past it a couple of days later, it was still there. And then by the weekend, it had been towed. There was a police aware label on it, and it had been towed. And that metaphorically and literally marked the end of my musical career, trying to earn a living from doing it. I just had a little bit of time off. And within a couple of days, I'd seen an ad. Shall we do this as my next pivotal moment?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's the next bit of the story.
And by the way, I love the closure and the finality of the van just going and just conking out. And that marks the line in the sand, the park up in the Streatham High Road. That's the end of the music career for now.
It was the first thought that went through my mind. And, when your car breaks down, you think, oh, I've got to get it fixed. That wasn't the thought. The thought was, I'm done. I'm not going to fix this car. This is it. The car's conked out, and so have I. And so has this career. So, yeah, real pivotal moment, truly.
Next one.
So the next one, really almost concurrent with that, was a couple of days later. I thought I'd better do something to earn some money. Scouring the small ads in the back of the London Evening Standard, because they used to have them in those days for jobs, vacancies. And this tiny little ad said, closers wanted, £1,000 a week. I thought, well, that sounds easy. I've closed quite a few things in my life, doors, suitcases, kind of thing. What the hell is all this about? No idea what a closer was, but I wanted £1,000 a week. So I called the number. It was Moban Kitchens in Crawley, just up the road, A23. Went along for an interview. The guy, to my absolute surprise, offered me the job immediately. When I unpicked it weeks later, I realised that they gave everybody a job because it was commission only, right? Got into a little bit of training, fell in with the right people who were actually quite good at this selling kitchens malarkey. And I became really, really good at it, to the extent that after 6 months, I was the #1 salesperson in the whole country. They had 1,800 salespeople, risen up the ranks. They've measured your sales metrics every single week, and they used to publish this document with a kind of running order, And I've still got them now because I'm inordinately proud of them. It just shows that I was able, almost on a sixpence, to flex my life completely from doing one thing to doing a completely different thing
Yes.
and succeed. And I must have about 30 or 40 of these consecutive weekly charts where I was the number one in the whole country. It just seemed second nature to me. Talking to people, finding out what they wanted, and then serving them the right thing in terms of designing the kitchen for them.
Yeah.
So reading that ad and going along for that interview is absolutely my third pivotal moment. You know, the thing that I can very closely remember. The other slightly amusing aside from that is that I had no idea what to wear for this, and my girlfriend at the time said, "Oh, just put your best gear on that you're gigging in." So my best gear constituted bright red chinos, bright red trousers, skin tight jeans, a canary yellow jumper that she'd knitted for me with a keyboard around the middle of it. You can imagine it.
I
Black
can.
and white keyboard, canary yellow, and white patent leather shoes, shiny. Right. I walked in this room and I could see this guy going, you know, back in
Don't
his
do
chair
that
a
every
little bit.
day.
And I sat down. A few weeks later, when I was actually getting the hang of it and starting to make sales, he called me and he said, "Jonny, so I've got to tell you, when you came in for that interview," he said, "my first reaction was, who's this?" Right?
You
And he said,
moved
I
your
said
lips
to
very
myself,
enigmatically there.
I said to myself, this guy is either going to be the best salesman we've ever had, or a complete waste of space, right?
Waste of space.
And he rolled the dice and took me on.
You must have thought Mark Bolan had walked in, because it's almost the right era, probably.
I seem to remember as well, just to be even more off-putting, if you like. I wore a mustache like this, and my glasses had this tint. You know, I can't remember whether it was still my perm era or whether I'd grown out the perm.
Wow. So
But
it's,
I was completely archetypal and the 80s musician. Right?
I think it's just like, Elton John or Mark Bolan walking in if their careers hadn't taken off in that regard, and then just walked in to get a kitchen sales job. And congratulations for getting up
and going, I can't do this anymore, man. Just give me a job.
Very good. Lovely pivot.
Something like that.
And again, very the through line there, the thread of you being able to evolve, flex, pivot, and succeed is a really lovely through line to you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think I've always had this kind of self-belief that, whatever happens, I'll be all right.
Yes.
Nothing's terminal till it's terminal.
Yes. It ain't over until it's over.
So as long as you're waking up in the morning, drawing a breath, there's always something you can do. Everything you've got is already inside you, isn't it? Everything you ever will be is already inside you.
Yes. Fourth shapage now?
Fourth big shapage has to be, meeting a friend of mine. There's so many actually, but I guess this is a serious evolution from flogging kitchens and various other knickknacks. I mean, I got into other sales organisations after that. But what really opened my eyes to the exponential nature of commerce and entrepreneurship was when I met a colleague who became my business partner in a financial services firm that we started, selling pensions and investments and insurance. And the big pivot between that and any former industries I've been selling in is that many sales jobs are not infinitely scalable. In other words, selling kitchens is only a certain amount of houses you can go into in a particular week or a month. There's only a certain cap on how much you can charge for a kitchen. You can't sell somebody a 200 grand kitchen kind of thing. Whereas in financial services, there are no limits to how much money you can make. And when we put the business together, it became really, really clear that there was a range of skills and ambition across our financial advisors. By the time we sold it, after 7 years, we had 200 staff, including 85 financial advisors and the rest being support staff. We had eight offices around the UK, and we did 10.2 million turnover in the year we sold it. And that journey of kind of, exponential growth taught me that there are no limits in entrepreneurship. If you're in the right market, talking to the right people with a product that people want,
yes,
then the sky is the limit. And I saw quite clearly and understood, and have since that time, how people become billionaires, how people put together global corporations from just an early start. And it's all about positioning. It's all about entering a market that's big enough to take what you're offering, and then it's about understanding that you can actually enter that market, and create a marketing process that enables you to open those big doors and step into bigger rooms. I mean, one of our financial advisors, there was a kind of scale of success, at the top end, he decided he was only going to work with millionaires. And he set out his whole stall to say that, you need to have 5 million net worth, you need to have at least 1 million in free cash available, and you need to be earning at least 250,000 a year to be one of my clients.
I've
Whereas,
heard it wrapped or packaged as sell to the money, not the many in that example.
yeah,
That's an
and if you can sell to the many with money, then all the better, because you
yes.
crack the code, then you've opened the Pandora's box. So I think getting together with my colleague who became my business partner in that was absolutely pivotal moment in so many ways. Not just that it created success at the time, but it's also created a mindset of
Yes.
abundance for me, and a template for everything I do going forward.
And interesting that you mentioned opening the Pandora's box, because that didn't mean you'd arrived and the world was perfect, because I know there was quite an entrepreneurial pivot that happened about that time too. So that it's all about the journey, because I think one of your backstories that we've tuned into, and you've very much put in the public domain, that also required another phoenix like rise another time. So you pivoted since then too.
Yeah, exactly. So the ultimate sale of that business didn't go according to plan. We got ripped off basically through our naivety. And we didn't get everything that we should have got from that, but we got something. And importantly, Chris, as we've been talking about, I got the experience and this understanding that I'll be all right no matter what.
Yes.
So certain things, I think, which looking around at others seem to lay them low forever and remove all their ability to function in the future. Never affected me in that way. It just kind of
Yes.
inspired me to get back on the horse and try and do something else again.
Wonderful. So great initial shapeages. Thank you. Now we're on to, in the tree structure, we're on to 3 things that inspire you now, Jonny Cooper.
3 things that inspire me. So in the present day, I think what inspires me is looking around in Gibraltar at the opportunities here, without going into too much country specific detail. There has been a deal struck in the last month with the European Union regarding opening the border here. So whereas for the last couple of decades, Gibraltar has been solely a British territory with a European border into Spain, the European border will be moved back a step to the Gibraltar airport, which means that all those of us who were here with our Gibraltar residency cards, our Gibraltar business, will be European citizens again, post-Brexit, as we were before, right?
So
so we're able to wander around Europe freely, as we could do before Brexit, right?
What a fantastic opportunity. Yes.
So it's a fantastic opportunity because investors and businesses and all the people that we in CIB like to collaborate with and work with and talk to will be much more sharply in focus and much nearer to us. So fantastic opportunities there.
So your instinct, if I may
one.
say, to land on your feet in the right place at the right time with the right opportunities is a fantastic testament to, again, keeping on and keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I look back over how we ended up here, it was purely a stroke of luck. I think it was serendipitous that we were able to sell our property in the UK to a willing buyer very quickly. Just walked through the door and said, "I'll have it. I'll give you the asking price." That hardly ever happens in property sales, certainly not with leasehold apartments such as we were in. But this couple absolutely fell in love with the place and immediately wanted it. That engineered our exit from the UK and allowed us to come here in good time. So that was kind of lucky, I guess, looking back on it.
And it's with your
Um,
wife and new son. Not new, but he's about 8, I would imagine now. Is that right?
he's 9, yeah, good
9.
guess. So that is absolutely an inspiration for me, of course. So without going into too much detail, they are a substantially young family for someone of my generation, shall we say. So I'm inspired every single day to ensure a safe and fruitful life for them in the future. What we call a legacy, I suppose. Although I am going to live to be really old. I've decided I'm going to live to be 103. That's my current goal. Not my current goal. It's my decision.
Yes, I am
Live
going to
to,
be 103. I like that.
I'm going to live to be 103. That's my decision.
I'll invite you back
Um,
to clearing at 102 just to drop the mic, if you like.
yeah, let's do it, mate. Let's do it. You'll still be around then, I'm sure. So yeah, that's my second inspiration. And my third and final inspiration is the prospect of transforming the global culture of employee wellbeing in companies and organizations. It is woeful at the moment how badly or how little care, shall we say, most companies and organizations put to their staff. They would rather spend, and we're talking big companies here, they'd rather spend millions or tens of millions of pounds with consultancy firms. We all know who they are, the big four, on business strategies, financial strategies, AI, rebranding. We'll see these headlines about 25 million spent on a logo and that kind of thing, and spend next to nothing on the most important asset in any business or organization, which is the people. Whatever you're trying to achieve as a strategy in a company will fail if the people are not behind it. If the people
Yes.
get why it's important. If the people don't feel as excited about it as the leadership and owners do. So my big motivation now is to create with CIB the world's foremost community of skilled and experienced wellbeing practitioners.
And just to explain the acronym
And
again, that's consultants in business, if you're just tuning in at this point.
CIB
CIB
consultants in business, yeah.
Yes.
And get them out there into the world, creating an impact, creating more than a dent, an actual, what's bigger than a dent? Give me a word. Creating an explosion in
A new
employee
big
well.
bang of purpose, basically, that reminds us to keep it human
Exactly.
and connecting.
So as long as we keep on doing that, as long as that explosion keeps on getting bigger, I will be motivated to my last breath to get that going. And not just from our point of view to become known as that practitioner organization that did that, but for the benefit of humanity. People should. Here's the thing, Chris. People should enjoy going to work. They should hop and skip into work every day with a Tupperware box full of cakes for all their mates, and have a lovely time every day at work. That's what workplaces should be like. And they just ain't. They just ain't. When you find those places, they are oases, aren't they, in the desert of not caring. And
That's a love. I hope you've written that down somewhere before. In an oasis in a desert of uncaring. That's fantastic.
I just made that up, actually, completely.
Well, we've got it on record. That's great. And
there you go. Bloody hell, I'm on fire today.
God, I'm good. So now
you are good. You've teased it out, man.
You're welcome. So now we're on to the squirrels. Borrow from the film Up. Talking of enjoying ourselves while we communicate. I love the film Up, and everyone's got a shiny object syndrome. Squirrels, where the dog is doing just that. So what would you say are your monsters of distraction? Could be the monkeys on the Rock of Gibraltar, but what never fails to grab your attention, Jonny Cooper, irrespective of anything else that's going on for you in your
Well, let's keep it in Gibraltar for the first one. So it's the feeling that I'm on holiday, permanent holiday, because a lot of people around us are. We've planted ourselves in Ocean Village. Those of you with a Google map, go and have a look at it and you can see where it is. It's a marina, it's a leisure marina, it's bars, it's restaurants, it's people having fun day in, day out till midnight and beyond. The temptation to be part of that and go out every night on the pop, eat out every night, fabulous, tiny Indian restaurants, right?
And presumably you can turn up at a piano and just tinkle at any point because you have that skill as well.
There are very few pianos here. There's only 3 piano players in Gibraltar, as far as I'm aware. I'm trying to persuade the Pizza Express here to actually buy a piano, because every time I play there, I've done some gigs. Every time I play there, I have to take my keyboard up. Anyway, we digress. So the distraction is absolutely this place, and trying to anchor yourself in the reality that no, you actually live here and run a business. You're not a tourist. You're not a holiday maker.
Yeah.
Stop behaving like one.
But it is the digital nomad dream to be somewhere glorious. And as you say, with the new change in the law, you're going to be able to go feral within Europe now, which is a new opportunity for Gibraltar.
It's certainly good for the weekends, and you're never sitting around going,
Yeah.
"What should we do this weekend?" You're going, "Beach."
Good idea.
Great idea. Barbecue. There you go. So that's the first distraction. The second distraction, which I think is becoming an epidemic, and I'll say this to everybody who suffers with this: wind your necks in, calm the frick down. Right? AI. We're using ChatGPT just as a casual tool for our amusement, for our entertainment. Right? We're asking it to do stuff. Make a picture of me as a 19th century Victorian businessman, with a bowler. You sit there for 5 minutes while it creates this image. We need to stop doing that. We need to realize that actually we are blessed beyond measure to be alive at the dawn of the age of AI. So let's work out how we can use it to actually improve our lives, not just as a little tickle of entertainment every now and again, right? I say every now and again, all day, every day for some people. Let's work out how we can use it to save time, to create better goods and services that we're going to put out into the world, and just become more profitable, and use this fantastic opportunity that no human that's ever walked the earth has experienced what we have at our fingertips. So let's not squander that. And it is a real temptation, isn't it, just to open the ChatGPT and just ask it some random waste of time thing and go, "Oh, isn't that clever?"
Yeah.
And get distracted with it. Not just that, but all the other tools that these smart asses have wrapped around, ChatGPT and Claude, powered by, I get dozens of invitations every week to try this new tool, try this new platform. Look at this thing, it's going to automatically populate your calendar. Look at this thing, it's going to write sales pages for you. Look at this, it's going to run all your Facebook ads for you. If you signed up to all these things, you'd be spending about 10 grand a month before you knew what was happening.
Yes.
So it is
Great
really
squirrel.
important. Yeah, it's really
Great
important.
squirrel.
Yeah, squirrels. Yeah.
Don't squander the squirrel of AI. We are the
Squander
dawning of the dawn of Aquarius, the dawn of AI. Really nicely put.
Yeah.
And then now finally, a quirky or unusual fact about you, Jonny Cooper, that we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us in the shaking of the tree structure part.
Quirky or unusual fact. Okay, I'm going to be completely quirky and completely ridiculous. I am the only person I know who has an autograph book which contains the actual live autographs of Rolf Harris and Jimmy Savile.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes. Awkward, but yes, wow. That's yes.
I've never met anybody who's ever done that.
Yes.
It's also, let's lighten the mood a bit. I've got Ringo Starr's autograph in it. I've got Michael Aspel's autograph in it. Ooh,
this is your life. Yep.
Yeah. And numerous others. If I use the name Leslie Crowther, that won't mean anything too much.
That means something to me.
Crackerjack pencil.
Yeah.
So of that era, obviously, in my youth, I carry an autograph book quite clearly. And whenever I came across a celebrity, I would say, "Sign here with this."
Lovely. Yeah. Great quirky fact, but also, yes, steeped in history there and a bit like, oh, There's a very brilliant one of the main actors who was in Absolutely, I'm trying to remember his name, does a brilliant thing about a police inspector digging up a time capsule from the 1970s, and it's all bloody hell, all stuff that's completely cancelled now because of the way
Yes,
the
that's
world
right.
went.
Really? Did
Oh,
people do that?
we have shaken your tree, Jonnny Cooper. Hurrah. Now we're going to stay in the clearing, move away from the tree. Next, we're talking about alchemy and gold. So when you're at purpose and in flow, and this is the obvious point where you can talk about everything you're now doing. When you're at purpose and in flow, what are you absolutely happiest doing in what you're here to reveal to the world?
Oh, gold. Can I give you two then?
Yes.
So one being my leisure and my heart in music, where I can just sit and play. There's a beautiful grand piano actually here in John Mackintosh Hall, the big theatre, just down the road, and uh, they've graciously granted me permission to go and play the piano when it's not in use. So I just go in there and just sit there for an hour.
And what would be your tune of the moment? This is a bit where Dan, the podcast editor, can beautifully weave in. If you'd like to select a piece of music that if I said, here's a piano, Jonny, play us something, what would you want to play?
What I play right? Well, it varies. 'Cause I've got a repertoire of thousands of
Of
songs
course
in
you
my
have.
head. So I don't know. If I was sitting down now, hang on a minute. Yeah, okay. Editor, do me Just the Two of Us.
Lovely.
Just the Two of Us by Bill Withers.
Any particular? Yes, fine. That's Dan. You'll know what.
And by the way, that's how you turn a duck into a soul singer, isn't it?
Because there's a joke there on Bill Withers that I haven't quite got yet. Just go there again.
How do you turn a duck into a soul singer? You put him in the microwave till he's Bill Withers.
Get in. So we've got a strand of music texturing on me, and
You could have laughed some more at that. It's actually quite a funny joke.
Yes, it is. Sorry, I was thinking
he's laughing inside. He's laughing.
No, it is funny, and I was also thinking about the beauty of what now is happening. Texturing the music, Dan. You know what to do. Enjoy this. This is no extra charge. Welcome bit. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to award you. Oh, you said you wanted two things. Have I got that?
Yeah, just in the flow. Over the years, I've learned to write compelling content that makes money, and I know for a fact because I did it last night. I could just pop a post into my Facebook group, and I can make some money from it. And turning keystrokes into money is quite a useful skill, isn't it? It means
It is.
Be broke if you can do that.
I've recently very happy to say I've met Neil Stringer, who knows you very well, and he had credited you with in conversations you had as fellow copywriters with giving him the moniker of the copy doctor, and that was you listening to him and said, "What you want to do is do this." So he was I know he's grateful for that sudden reflection of what somebody's bringing to the table.
Excellent, that's good to hear. I like Neil.
Excellent. Yes. So now I'm going to award you with a cake, and now this is. Where you're going to put a cherry on the cake in a minute. But do you like cake, Jonny? And what cake do you like?
Well, I follow a plant-based diet, so vegan cakes only, please. But that actually looks like it could be a vegan. What do you call that cake?
Carrot cake.
Carrot cake, a vegan carrot cake. Yeah.
So now
provided it is, I'm in. Give me a slice.
You're welcome. So now you get to put a cherry on the cake with stuff like, what's a favorite inspirational quote that's always given you succor, Jonny Cooper, and pulled you towards your future?
Yep. That's easy. That's a Robin Sharma quote.
Yep.
Which I requote to myself and to others at appropriate times. And the quote is as follows: that all change is difficult at first, messy in the middle, and beautiful at the end.
And I know Monty Python adapted that brilliantly, with all brontosauruses are thin at one end, very much fatter in the middle, and then thinner again at the other end.
And elk.
Yes. Lovely. And thank you for that quote. With the gift of hindsight, because you've been through many wonderful highs, lows, highs. We need the highs, we need the lows. It's crests and troughs, as a recent guest very articulately put. What help would you offer to yourself if you were to pick a moment in your history to come back holographically, deliver some advice to yourself?
Don't get married quite so much.
Yes, just stop getting married quite so regularly. So how many times have we been married, please? 4. You do the math. Lovely. Wonderful. But obviously,
People say, "Are you married?" I say, "Occasionally."
yes. But I know that how happy you are on.
It's lovely. I mean, number 4 is the keeper for sure.
I've got a bell for comedy moments like cashier number 4, please. This is wife number 4, please. Thank you very much. Ding, ding. Lovely. Okay. So we're going to ramp up now to talk about Shakespeare in a minute, to talk about legacy. But just before we get there, this is the pass the golden baton moment, please. They don't like it up by Mr. Menrin, but who would you most like to pass the golden baton along to, Jonny, in order to keep the golden thread of the storytelling going now that you've experienced this from within?
So you mean somebody that you can interview?
Somebody that you think would like, appreciate, or just really enjoy being given a damn good listening to, you knowing what I'm trying to achieve in terms of growing this platform, who would you most like to pass it along to?
I'm going to name, and I will introduce you to my very good friend and a consultant in the COB project. His name is Steve Dan. Steve is the former Chief Operating Officer of the UK Border Force, former police Assistant Chief Constable. He's done hostage negotiation in Afghanistan. He's had an incredible career, and he's now, I'm very grateful to say, a COB consultant.
And that's Dan, spelt how, please?
D-A-N-N. And I will, I'll introduce you after this session.
Very kind. That's a great golden baton pass. Thank you, Jonny. And now, inspired by Shakespeare and all the world-to-stage and all the better women merely players, this is now an opportunity. I'm holding this book because I bought myself this when I went to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. It says in the margin 16986. Marvellous. But anyway, borrow from the 7 Ages of Man. How, when all is said and done, Jonnny Cooper, Consultants in Business Managing Director, how would you most like to be remembered when you're 103?
I think as someone who made a difference to corporate well-being, who improved the environment and the lives of employees and everybody who works for companies and organizations around the world.
Wonderful. And what a glorious imperative that is. So where can we find out all about you, Jonnny Cooper, on the internet? This is going to be the show us your QR code, please. So first of all, show us your QR code. Over to you, Joe. Could we please show the Consultants in Business QR code? So if you're watching this, it's very exciting. You can scan this code and go straight into CIB Global.
That is lovely. I'm massively impressed by that. Well done.
So this is the world's leading community of wellbeing practitioners, which is what Jonny's been talking about. But if you're not able just to scan it, Jonny, just tell us where the URL is for CIB.
Oh, it's easy. CIB.global.
I love the economy of that. CIB.global. Do you want to talk about your Facebook group as well? There isn't a QR code for that. I'm giving you another one in a minute, but where can people find you on the internet?
I think that will be useful too. Just go on Facebook and search for Everyone Hates Marketing.
Lovely. So that's Jonnny Cooper, Facebook, Everyone Hates Marketing. If you are a consultant and are interested in everything Jonny's been talking about in terms of bringing together well-being coaches and lucrative corporate clients in the domain in which he's operating, this is now the CIB application form you can QR code as well. Just tell us about that, Jonny.
Well, yeah, and by the way, in case that seems a bit scary, what am I applying for? It's more a kind of visibility piece where we can just get to see you and we can have a look and call you back and email you and say, what you're thinking of, this kind of thing. There's no obligation on you or on us to take it any further than that. Just a sort of casual conversation. So it just tells us a little bit about where you are today, what you've done, what you'd like to achieve in the future, that kind of thing. It's actually quite a cathartic exercise, Chris. People who've filled it out say, I really enjoyed doing that because it made me tell the story of my life and what I've done. So if you fancy, reaching out and maybe taking the first steps into becoming a corporate consultant, scan this QR code. Take straight to the Google form, as you can see from the thumbnail. Pop a few details down there, hit the submit button, and we promise we'll get back to you. We'll get back to everybody who's filled one out.
And I promised you I'd ask you a question from a sort of coach's perspective because of working in the similar sort of corporate training and facilitation. I'm a motivational comedian and all that shebang. What would be on the table for somebody who feels expert as a well-being or resilience facilitator?
Yeah, I'm very much about just getting you up to speed with what's needed in the corporate world. So it's unlikely that you'll need to change the work you do. In other words, the modalities, the methods you use, because that's within you. That's who you are, isn't it? That's the stuff you've learned. What may need to change is how you approach prospects. How you win clients, how you enroll them, how you actually plan the sort of workflow, if you like. So all that good stuff, which enables you to attract the attention and retain the attention of corporate leaders, may well be a pivot for you. It may well be a new world, and that's primarily what we help you and support you with all the way, so you can bring your glorious talents to bear into some larger companies.
Wonderful. So thanks for sharing that QR code, Joe. Just a couple of announcements from me now at this point. If you'd be interested in being interviewed for the show yourself, the website for my show is thegoodlisteningtoshow.com. If you'd like a conversation about being my guest too. Very excitingly, there's a series strand that's been part of the Mountainscape of the Good Listening To show all along. But in the last several months, I've now fixed on a separate website. Again, it's part of it anyway, called legacylifereflections.com, which is to use this curated structure to record either your story or the story of somebody precious to you for posterity, without any morbid intention, but lest we forget before it's too late. And my own father was a very willing guinea pig for this construct as a sort of proof of concept. My father died very sadly last August, but he's now, I suppose, a bit of a sort of mascot to the fact that it can really, really help, because now that I still have, what we miss the most is what they sounded like, the sound of their voice, that precious person when they've gone. But I still have my father's recording, which is incredibly precious. Also, final announcement, I have Rob Brydon coming into the Good Listening To show this coming Saturday as we record in the early part of July. I know this will only be on the timeline for a bit, but on the July the 5th, Rob Brydon is coming in to do a live theatre show version of the show. Jonny mentioned that you may also want to invite him to come and perform in a particularly exciting comedy space within Gibraltar, which you mentioned. Do you want to say a bit about that? Not about Rob Brydon, but what?
Yeah, I mean, our big performance venue here is actually a very spectacular and unique venue. It's a cave. It's called St. Michael's Cave, and it's a vast cavern, basically, with proper auditorium seating and all the rest of it. We attract musicians and comedians, Michael McIntyre, Sarah Millican recently.
Yeah.
And bands and orchestras and that kind of thing. It's a wonderful space. Mr. Brydon would go down really well. There's a huge appetite for stand-up comedy.
I myself have a comedy improvisation company called instantwit.co.uk. You can have a look at too, to bring us into the cavern. It sounds like the acoustics are beautiful. Is that right?
They are. They're absolutely breathtaking. Yeah.
Being in
it's actually a little bit too echoey.
Okay.
For loud rock bands, which is why there aren't a lot of them here. It's more kind of orchestral and kind of soft stuff. There's a nice jazz gig coming up in October, which I'm going to go to.
Interesting. I mentioned
it's a wonderful venue.
My brother's a musician. He does rock music, so his band wouldn't go down well. Whereas I think anything orchestral, it sounds like it's a cathedral, a natural cathedral of nature.
It's a natural cathedral amphitheatre.
Sponsored by St. Michael. Couldn't get more celestially blessed than that, I don't think. Fantastic.
There's also a Marks and Spencer's here. See what I did there?
I did, St. Michael, and you get some new underpants, new socks as well. And it's not just an M&S venue. It's sorry, that joke's gone now. All good. So, is there?
Edit that out.
As this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening To show, stories of distinction and genius, Jonnny Cooper, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Chris, I would just like to say thank you for inviting me back. I'm a huge advocate of what you're doing here. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and let's hope you get lots more interesting people, even more interesting than me, on the show.
And thank you for agreeing in the sort of reciprocal arrangement of this, that you're very happy to introduce me to your community, and that was lovely of you to say what you just said. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here again for a second pass through the clearing. I'm a very wonderful, enviable lifestyle you have now curated for yourself. The rock star of Gibraltar, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Chris Grimes, but most importantly, that has been Jonnny Cooper. Thank you very much indeed to Joe, my wonderful, beautiful technician next door as well. I've been Chris Grimes. That's Jonnny Cooper. Good night.